Jonathan Djanogly.
Deputy Chairman, Ukraine is Europe and Europe is Ukraine. So I'm under no illusion that the incredibly brave defence and sacrifices being made by the Ukrainian people against Russian aggression and barbarism is nothing less than a sacrifice being made on our behalf. But whilst Ukrainian sacrifice is about defence of their land and their homes, for us it is not about our territory. It is a sacrifice being made by Ukrainians in defence of our democratic values, our peaceful existence, and our Western cultures and post-war non-violent settlement that we have enjoyed and come to take for granted for so long. All of these things are now being challenged by Russia's totally unsupportable actions. But just to lay the blame at the door of an unhinged Russian president or his criminal gang is easy. But it is not adequate, because the causes of this disaster are long in the making and are painful for us in the West, because they show up weaknesses in our own political systems. In retrospect, we in the West massively misunderstood the nature and implications of the demise of the Soviet Empire. We somehow assumed that it and its paraleles would somehow disappear, that they would jump to Western values, Western markets and regulation, and that they would demilitarise. And so we relaxed and we took down our guard. We demilitarised based on some vacant concept of the peace dividend and the ultimate victory of liberal democracy. And we hoped, with little justification, that Russia would become just like us. Most people actually welcomed President Putin, who in the early days made a play against corruption. That is, until the huge scale of its own corruption was realised. And then the West adopted an apologist attitude. Little was made of Putin's viciousness in Chechnya, perhaps because that suited Western narrative at the time. The invasion of Georgia in 2008 went largely unnoticed in the West, even though it established a method of interference, fake causation and brutal attack that we have now seen repeatedly used by Russia in Crimea and Ukraine's eastern Donetsk and Luhansk. And for those of us who have closely followed these events over the last decades, it has been a very frustrating period. Even when Russia attacked people in this jurisdiction, indeed using radioactive and nerve agent weapons, we only reacted in the most measured of ways. And yet the signs, the patterns, the lack of care for our values, the irrationality, the barbarism and cynical geopolitical manipulation tactics were always there. And if there is one thing that comes out of this before others, it is that we must view our relationship with Russia on the basis of what it is, not what we would want it to be. So personally, I'm horrified and disgusted by Russia, but I'm not surprised. We must recognise that Russia is quite content not only to use force, but also to start using it on a much lower provocation level than us. So yes, even if we do not directly fight Russia, we must continue to provide the Ukrainians with all of the military assistance they need. If they also need missiles to defend against planes, they should get them. If they need more anti-tank weapons, they should get them. If we need also to institute an urgent review of what military staff and equipment we and NATO will need in the event of Russian aggression continuing in the way it has been doing, we need to do it. No more weaknesses, no more ignoring threats. I will.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I thank my very good friend for allowing me to intervene. The military, the real problem they have now is that the anti-aircraft missiles can't go high enough. So they really need MiG-29s, and actually there are pilots there that can fly them, and there are MiG-29s within the NATO alliance. We've seen Polish ones. Let us do all we can to try and give them MiG-29 so they go up and get the aircraft that are beyond the reach of anti-aircraft missiles.
My honourable friend makes a great intervention, and I absolutely agree that we should be doing everything we can to assist the Poles to get those planes to our friends in Ukraine. And yes, if Russia is not prepared to live by our Western rules and actually uses them against us, then we must remove them from our economic system. It has become clear that the West, acting collectively, has the ability to send Russia back to the economic dark ages and a barter society. if we have the political will to do that. Recent sanction rounds and implicit Western unity in this regard, not least the banning of Russian banks from the SWIFT system, have been heartening and often indeed led by our government. The further list of sanctions today, taking numbers, as the Minister said, to over 1,000 individuals, are welcome and impressive. Having said that, I do feel that if we had cracked down on Russian intransigence after their invasion of Georgia, which, by the way, they still partly occupy, we would have stopped much later pain in the West. Sanctions against individuals will play an important role here. I will.
As my honourable friend knows, I had the honour of meeting the chairman of the European Integration Committee in Georgia in Paris at a conference a few days ago. Does he recall me saying that she said that Georgia had been warning about this now for nearly 20 years?
They have indeed, and I can say that from a lot of first-hand evidence. So sanctions against individuals will play an important part here. I saw how the government was really getting it when they extended the Aeroflot sanctions to private jets. My suggestion next, as I've told the Minister before, would be to ban Russian yachts and planes from getting insurance. I note that sanctioning leads to asset freezes. The government will be left holding millions of pounds worth of houses and boats and other assets. But what happens next? Will these assets be sequestrated and used for the benefit of Ukraine's rebuilding, or will it be held to be returned to oligarchs after the war? The latter option may not be so popular, I believe, but legally correct possibly if we don't legislate further on this matter. I will.
Our friend is making a powerful argument on the use of sanctions and their importance abroad. Does he not agree with me, though, that their use is also important at home? We are seeing dirty Russian money stolen off the Russian people, used by Putin in deliberate acts to undermine our national security, to silence voices in our country, to intimidate journalists and to disrupt the procedures of our courts. Does he not see this as a direct assault on the British people, being bought and paid for by Putin's friends and stolen off the Russian people?
Well, yes, indeed, in every regard, and I'm very pleased that we are now addressing that. Many have addressed the question of helping Ukrainian refugees. I don't have time to go into this in detail other than to say today that I think we need to be generous to these poor souls to the greatest extent that we can. Finally, but no less importantly, we should now be preparing a very significant Marshall-type plan for Ukraine. Once Russia is out of Ukraine, which can be the only outcome we believe in, Russia should know that as much as they will be humbled by our sanctions, we shall also help to rebuild Ukraine and put Ukraine into a better economic situation than they are now in. The days of pandering to Russia are over. The suffering of the Ukrainian people, of the Georgian people and of others, including Russian demonstrators on all our behalves, must not go unrecognised. We must keep up this action.